Hey, friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to Ask Wrestle Juice. Been an eventful couple days, so we're going to dive right into your questions. First up, of course, last night on Monday Night Raw, Becky Lynch won the Battle Royal for the WWE Women's World Championship. And so a lot of you have a question similar to this. Jason Bonilla says, is Becky's booking becoming the modern day Hulk Hogan? They should start using her to put over other talents other than Rhea. She hasn't done so. So I've seen the funniest sort of element of this was hopping on Twitter and you know, Liv Morgan fans being upset. Oh, Becky won. And the meme of, like, you know, Triple H says, hey, Becky, you're going to be in a battle royal and lose, and Liv Morgan's going to win. And then you get like a montage of Becky Lynch in a video form with Hulk Hogan's TNA theme playing, which is pretty funny stuff, right? However, I don't buy it. I think, if anything, Becky Lynch is closer to John Cena territory. Honestly, John Cena's lost a lot of matches. So let's go back like 5 years or so when Cena was still around here and there. 5 years ago was 2019. So let's go back to like 2016, 2017, when John Cena was sort of on the tail end of being around on a regular basis. The wins were plentiful, but the losses were impactful. And in the case of Becky Lynch, when you look at her cage match profile, yes, there are a lot of wins, but the losses actually mean something. So let's go back to after she came back from having a kid, right? So after pandemic, she comes back, she beats Bianca Belair in, 30 seconds or something like that at SummerSlam. And she has a title for a while. She loses it to Bianca on night one of WrestleMania 38. The next night, she lost to Asuka, which was like a qualifier for something, I forget what. She ends up losing in the Money in the Bank match. Doesn't, you know, I mean, it's a multi-man, so whatever. At SummerSlam, of course, that's what the first SummerSlam Triple H took over. She lost to Bianca Belair there. Then she turned face. In 2023, she lost, of course, to Trish Stratus, part of their big feud. Eventually, she ended up winning. But during the course of that feud, she also lost to Zoey Stark, which was meant to help Zoey Stark gain some traction, which really hasn't happened much since then. But I'll be honest with you, I feel like that's more uncreative than Becky Lynch. She had a really terrific NXT title run where she lost to Lyra Valkyria. She built up that title so that whoever beat her would be kind of a made person. And they've tried to do that, I feel like, with Lyra Valkyria. That was sort of a big deal. She lost to Nia Jax on day one. Eventually, she got her win back, and then she lost to Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't with Becky Lynch. Like, you want somebody who has such a reputation and a legacy in the credentials so that when somebody does beat her, it means something. Now, it's not on her that Zoey Stark sort of hasn't had a lot of momentum or hasn't had a lot of success since then. It's not on her that Lyra Valkyria isn't the NXT Women's Champion right now. I think she had a pretty decent run. She'll probably end up getting called up in the draft. I feel like Becky Lynch and Nia Jax had a really good feud, and that helped elevate. That was one of the reasons I think people were coming around to Nia Jax. So I'll be honest with you, I don't see it. Certainly not Hulk Hogan. Closer maybe to John Cena, where it was, yeah, he was established. He was the guy. He had done it all. And so, yes, he would win a lot, but when he would lose back then, it would sort of mean something. So, you know, I kind of call BS on it. I was cool with the win. I think that Becky Lynch is a big deal. And yes, I understand that Liv Morgan has a lot of fans out there, but I don't see it in her yet. If they build her up, if you can actually see it in Liv Morgan, then she would have won the title. If you could see it in her, you would see it in her. And I know a lot of people claim that she's got it, but let's be honest with you, with Liv Morgan, it's always been like, okay, who the hell are you? Are you a crazy person who likes pain? Are you kind of like a whiny baby face? What are you exactly? And they still have to decide. Now, maybe once Liv, and if she ends up stealing Dom from Rhea, then maybe you're on to something. Maybe you've got something going there. Maybe they'll establish some stories. And I kind of feel like Becky winning and Liv not winning is probably setting up Liv so that, hey, maybe they can actually tell some stories where she establishes a character that's more than just whatever it is she's been doing. And I know she's got her fans, and I appreciate that, but until I see more from her, until I see a reason why I should be tuning in to watch Liv Morgan, why would she be champion? So no, I kind of call BS on the idea that Becky Lynch is being booked like the modern day Hulk Hogan. For people saying that, you guys weren't around during Hulk Hogan's various runs. I don't know what was more ridiculous, his run in the late 90s in WCW or his run in the 80s under Vince McMahon. I don't know. All right, Volcano Pyre here brings up an incident that happened, of course, at AEW Dynasty. Says, I missed the hot takes thread, so I'll turn this into a question. Why do you like the Bryan convulsing spots? I see what it was trying to do for the story, but personally, I hate it when he does it. I know it's acting, but I still hate it. Well, I guess my question is, if you know it's acting, if you know it's a performance, why do you hate it? If it's a matter of you think it's ridiculous and it's much different than like selling a leg or selling an arm or a shoulder or something, I would understand that. If you think, oh my God, this guy is convulsing, why would he ever be cleared again if that's the situation? I can understand that point of view. If that's your point of view, you don't specify here, but if that's your point of view, I kind of understand that. If you think convulsing is a bit too much to believe that they would let a wrestler then wrestle again. I guess I like it, or I don't. I'll put it this way. It doesn't like bother me. I don't find it offensive. I don't like desire to see it. I don't think it's like that big. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I was surprised at how many people this worked. I was surprised at how many people actually thought. Like when I saw Twitter, I was like, wait a second. When they did hell, even live, when I saw how he took the Storm Driver, I was like, no, clearly he lands on his neck and shoulders. Like he doesn't land on the top of his head. He doesn't land, high neck. It was like his shoulders and like the lower neck, which is like exactly where you're supposed to land, if I'm not mistaken. And, he's doing the overacting thing where his like hands are being weird and he's like, twitching and stuff. And he's like, ah. But to me, it was just sort of clear that it was a performance and it was a story. And now Will Ospreay has to deal with the guilt, being a good guy, of what he did to Bryan Danielson. I think that's a cool story. I think that's an interesting story, and I'm interested to see how they're going to deal with it. I think it's one thing that I criticize AEW for is like, hey, where's the stories? Even this story was who's the best in the world. Now they got a different one, and it's Will Ospreay is a good guy coming into this new company, a wrestler he admires, and he fucked him up. I like that. It's a performance. That's why it doesn't bother me, because like from the second he did it, I was like, okay, well, this is just a performance. So it didn't bother. It didn't bother me. You can tell, like, look, if he was actually convulsing and, the ref had the wherewithal to be like, oh my God, this guy's fucked up, we wouldn't have gotten that hidden blade at the end. So I don't know. I thought it was a good performance. If it freaked people out, I don't know, man. Sometimes that's just part of pro wrestling. Like some wrestlers just really know how to sell. I remember there was like a Bianca Belair spot where I was like, oh my God, that looked like it hurt. That looked like it really sucked. She might be really fucked up. And then she wasn't. She was fine. Bayley did a great job selling at WrestleMania. I didn't really necessarily think that she was actually, but sometimes they sell so good that you buy into it. And you just sort of have to understand that like 99% of the time, the professionals there, that the referees, the doctor ringside. I mean, the one time when I was like, oh, this isn't right was Matt Hardy, Sammy Guevara years ago when they fell, and clearly Matt Hardy should not have continued that match. And it was kind of ridiculous that anybody let him continue that match. But other than that, I mean, yeah, have there been moments here or there? I think there was a Sammy Guevara, Jeff Hardy, Sammy Guevara versus the Hardys, apparently, bit where, fairly recently, which I think led to Sammy Guevara getting suspended, which is why he's not on TV right now. So I don't know, man. I feel like most of the time they're going to catch it and, they will stop the match and nothing will happen. But like, I don't know, as an audience member, it's like watching a movie and getting upset over like, some sort of violent, scene or something. It's like, well, they're fine. It's all just movies. It's all just performance. So it doesn't bother me. And I know it's apples and oranges, movies and wrestling, But if I know he's fine, I know he's acting, then I'm like, okay, well, what is the story he's telling? So I'm fine with it. I was surprised at how many people like freaked out over it. Tony, the Pokemon guy, says, licensed music aside, what makes a good theme? In my opinion, what makes a good theme is if you hear it, like the first 5 seconds of it, if it's something that can explode people when there's a run-in, right? That's why, like, I like Darby Allin's theme as a song. I think it's a cool song. But I feel like it needs like a little bit more of an explosive beginning intro for when he comes and does his save, like if he has to run down and make a save. So for me personally, I think a wrestling theme is something that has a kick to it in the beginning, that has something distinct. The most obvious one, the glass breaking, right? I think everybody should have some sort of big intro sound boom thing, whether it's musical or a sound effect that kicks in and people are like, oh my God, this is so good. There's a lot. I might have to do a video on this about the Def Rebel controversy. I kind of feel bad for those guys because people are just shitting all over them. But at the same time, their work is fairly mid. Blake Whitehouse says, realistically, how long should Triple H be in charge of creative until Shawn Michaels takes the reins? I don't know, man. I mean, if he thinks that Shawn Michaels can complement what he does, I don't know. You know, he seems to be doing fine at NXT. When Triple H feels like there's some new blood that needs to be running creative. I think it'll probably always end up being like a collaborative effort between these two. Wouldn't shock me if within a couple of years, I don't know, maybe when CM Punk's body finally gives out for the last time, they can sort of make that transition and Punk can run things and Shawn Michaels can come up to main roster and he can collaborate with Triple H on all that kind of stuff. Or maybe at some point Triple H will just be like, hey, you know what? Some of the other divisions are suffering. Like, you know, it's one of the criticisms, and I think it's a good one, or it's a valid one, about Rhea Ripley's title reign is that none of the women on Raw really, besides Nia Jax and kind of Becky Lynch, none of the women on Raw really came off as legit contenders for Rhea Ripley. And I feel like that's something they really need to concentrate on. And I think that Shawn Michaels would do great at that. So maybe it'll be a situation where Triple H can, you know, focus on, you know, the main event scenes, the world title scenes, maybe like the Intercontinental scene or something like that. And then he can supplement creative with Shawn Michaels and they can complement each other. Because it does feel like there are some gaps in where the creative energies are being used. Funky Spaceman Island says, we saw you on Cultaholic Straight to Hell, where you send bad wrestling tropes to hell. I was on there a couple of years ago. But what are some wrestling tropes that you feel the opposite of? The ones that will always pop you no matter what and you'd send straight to heaven. Some wrestling tropes that I would send to heaven that I love. Oh man, he says anytime a wrestler lip syncs their theme as they make their entrance. Whenever, like similar to that, whenever an opponent dances along to their opponent's theme song. So like Asuka dancing to Bianca Belair's theme song makes me laugh. E. David Bruce says, what happened to the phone calls on Going in Raw? I miss Paul, Phil McDonald, and Dick Slavitt. Well, Brett the Hitman Horse has been calling in at the end of Going in Raw over the past 2 weeks or so. So maybe tune in and we'll get some more of those. Dank717 says, what does your picture-perfect return for Roman looks like? Mine is him saving Heyman from the new bloodline turning on him. Something like, I don't know. I feel like Jimmy's going to try. Jimmy will probably, before he goes running back to Jay, he'll probably try to take on the bloodline by himself. That'll bring out Jay. Maybe they'll respond with Jacob Fatu. Numbers will be overwhelming. You know, somebody suggested today that Nia Jax head to SmackDown for the draft and she joined the bad bloodline and then Naomi can join the good bloodline. And I don't know, it just feels like it's the kind of situation where the numbers game has to be overwhelming and then Roman comes back at the exact right moment and you get like, you know, his theme kicking in. So yeah, I mean, I'd have to think about some sort of fantasy book scenario. Maybe I'll do that in a video. That sounds like it could be a fun video. I could dive into the fantasy booking niche. Brandon Will Win says, who do you see facing off in War Games this year with Bloodline, Imperium, JD, Alpha Academy, Damage Control, seemingly broken up? What factions are left? Why at 6? Oh, it's going to be good Bloodline versus bad Bloodline. There's still plenty of time for that. Dire Omer says, has Def Rebel done anything good? EO Sky's theme song is probably the best thing they've done. That shit is awesome. Stu Wellbaum says, do you have Perk Gable almost immediately beating Sammy for the belt, or have that happen in a bigger premium live event after having a program with Otis? I don't know if he's going to be the guy to take that title off Sami Zayn. At some point, you got to figure he's going to get back into the situation, but I don't know. I wasn't like huge on his promo this week. I feel like it wasn't like Angle Wrestling Machine Gable. He just sort of ran down the Alpha Academy in sort of like a cartoonishly villain way. I wasn't huge on it, so I don't know what they have planned. I honestly think with Gable, they're going to see what happens. They're just going to sort of take it as it comes, and if he ends up back in the Intercontinental picture, great. But I wouldn't like bank on it. I wouldn't bet on it. Squirrel Tactic says, if you could build a stable of 5 members from all across wrestling, who would they be and why? Good question. I would go with wrestling nerds. So like I think Athena, I think is like legit like a nerd. Cody Rhodes, of course, is a nerd. Xavier Woods, big gaming nerd. Kenny Omega is a big nerd, and Shayna Baszler. They're all kind of nerds. They like nerdy things. So I'm going to go. I think that's 5 right there. That's a good faction right there. JC Wolfwood says, do you think Jericho's Learning Tree storyline is a commentary on Punk and Jack Perry, a vet forcing his advice on a young talent who doesn't need or want it? That's not a terrible point of view right there. I kind of feel it's more Jericho trying to directly head on address the idea that he feuds with younger talent, sucks all their momentum away, and they don't end up any better for it. I think he's going to actively try to address that head on with this storyline. I kind of feel like it's more Jericho doing a storyline about Jericho. F7 or what is it? Florin? Is that Florin? Okay. What character changes should Cody bring to the table now that he's finished the story? I still think that they should roll with politician Cody. Like slowly but surely people start to realize, hey, this guy kind of just manipulates us for his own benefit. And then that leads to his heel turn at some point. Cinema Love says, would you rather be a member of Evolution, The Bloodline, DX, or Judgment Day? Like Evolution used to ride in style, right? They used to have the limos, the women, the money. They used to ride in style. So maybe Evolution, but then you'd also like have to worry about getting turned on. Like once they turned on Orton, it was like, oh my God, that's not good. The Bloodline. The anxiety of hanging out with Roman Reigns is probably too much for me to handle. DX, hey, they had some cool shit going on. Judgment Day, they all seem to like each other quite a bit, but again, the awkwardness of Damian Priest. For me, I think it's DX. They seem like they had a lot of fun, kind of on the vulgar side, not a lot of pressures there, not a lot of people turning on each other. So yeah, I think when you break it down like that, I didn't even try that. When you break it down, I break it down. JGB420 says, do you and Larson book the Action Coast Wrestling shows? And if so, what's your booking philosophy? We do not. We don't have the time to be hands-on. We've got our guy there, Magnum AD, Alexis Derevko, booking those shows, doing a terrific job. So yeah, no, it's not us. Maybe one day we'll get the book. We'll get the pencil. Where's my pencil? Put your pencils up. Steven the Dude says, Steve, I know you don't like long matches, but if you had to pick some long matches you do like, what would they be? So a couple things come to the top of my head. I think, was it Bryan Danielson and Danielson? Didn't he have like 2-hour-long matches? I'll have to look that up. End of an Era was 30 minutes. Like all of the Omega Okada matches, wasn't there an Omega Okada match? Like the 2 out of 3 falls, it was like over an hour long or something like that. I think I really like that one. I could watch those guys, Omega and Okada, I could watch those guys go at it all day long. I think Danielson, let's see here. Danielson, MJF. Didn't they do an Iron Man match or something like that? Let's see here. Bryan Danielson versus MJF. Yeah, they did an Iron Man match. I think that was a really good one. I think that was like one of the best ones there was. Yeah, I remember that. That was a really good one. Yeah. So that, I'm fine with that. I was fine with that. kind of feel like the match with Ospreay could have gone like 25 minutes, maybe 23. Cool Fresh Guy says, could we see Jamie Hayter with a title shot at Wembley against Toni Storm? We can. I think we will. She's been gone long enough. I don't know where she's at. Probably, hopefully, be healed up by August, and then she could take that title off Toni Storm. I think that's probably the plan. Wouldn't shock me at all. That's going to do it for questions. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends. Tell your relatives. Till next time, we'll see you around. She's right. She's right here. She's right there. People want dog. There's dog. What are you doing? What are you doing? Hi. Oh, hi.